Penguin Random House Audio presents The Woman's Hour, The Great Fight to Win the Vote by Elaine Weiss. Read for you by Tavia Gilbert, with an introduction by the author.
In memory of my parents, who took their little girl into the voting booth, let her pull the magic curtain, and taught me to treasure my right to vote. And my dear friend Natalie Moore Babbitt, who taught me how to be a writer. The time has come to shout aloud in every city, village, and hamlet, and in tones so clear and jubilant that they will reverberate from every mountain peak and echo from shore to shore. The Woman's Hour has struck. Carrie Chapman Catt, The Crisis, Presidential Address to the National American Women's Suffrage Association, September 1916. The right of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of sex. 19th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. Introduction. On a Saturday evening in mid-July 1920, 3 women raced toward Nashville's Union Station on steam-powered trains. They each traveled alone, carrying a small suitcase, a handbag, a folder stuffed with documents. They were unremarkable in appearance, dressed in demure cotton dresses and summer hats. Their fellow passengers could hardly imagine the dramatic purpose they shared. They had all been summoned to command forces in what would prove to be one of the pivotal political battles in American history. This is the story of that battle, the furious campaign to secure the final state needed to ratify the 19th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, giving women the most fundamental right of democracy, the vote. Carrie Catt, the president of the National American Women's Suffrage Association, the preeminent suffrage organization in the nation, was on a southbound train from New York City. Josephine Pearson, president of the Tennessee State Association opposed to women's suffrage, traveled north from her family home in the Cumberland Mountains of Tennessee. Sue White, a young activist for the National Woman's Party, the militant wing of the suffrage movement, came fresh from a protest in the Midwest. They converged on Nashville for the explosive climax of American women's 7-decade struggle for equal citizenship, and there was much at stake. 36 state approvals were required for ratification, and 35 were in hand. If the Tennessee legislature ratified the 19th Amendment, women's suffrage would become the law of the land, and 27 million women would be able to vote just in time for the fall presidential elections. If the legislature rejected it, the amendment might never be enacted. It all came down to Tennessee. There were powerful forces opposing federal women's suffrage as it approached the legal finish line. Political, corporate, and ideological adversaries intent upon stopping the 19th Amendment. Some of the most vociferous foes of enfranchisement were the anti-suffragists, the antis, such as Josephine Pearson, who feared that women's entrance into the polling booth would hasten the nation's moral collapse. The suffragists, the suffs, had reason to worry, as the amendment had already been rejected by nearly all the southern states, for the same blatantly racist reasons as put forth by Tennessee. If women got the vote, black women would also be entitled to the ballot. The presidential candidates were playing their own games, using women's suffrage as a pawn. This was the moment of reckoning, and both sides were willing to use every possible weapon to prevail. Over the course of the next 6 weeks, the 3 campaign commanders were joined by more than 1,000 women and men from around the state and across the country. Suffs, antis, governors and senators, political operatives, corporate lobbyists, and beleaguered legislators, all pouring into Nashville to enter the fray. The conflict quickly devolved into a vicious face-off, brimming with dirty tricks and cutting betrayals, sexist rancor, racial bigotry, booze, and the Bible, with the ghosts of the Civil War hovering over the proceedings and jitters lingering from the Great War, amplifying the tension. The outcome remained in doubt until the very last moment. The intensity of this battle in Nashville, the strength and nature of the suffrage opposition, led by women, the racial dimensions of the conflict, and the uncertainty of the outcome may seem surprising to us now, even shocking. It's too easy to imagine that the enfranchisement of American women simply arrived, like some evolutionary imperative, a natural step in the gradual march of progress, or as a gift eventually bestowed by wise men on their grateful wives, daughters, and sisters. The women asked politely, staged a few picturesque marches, hoisted a few picket signs, and without much drama, votes for women was achieved. That's not how it happened. The very idea that women should have the right to participate in a government by and for the people was long considered radical, even dangerous in the United States. Despite Abigail Adams' exhortation in 1776 to her husband John to remember the ladies when forming the new American democracy, our esteemed founding fathers had absolutely no intention of giving women a voice in public affairs. Throughout the 19th and early 20th centuries, women were condemned from the pulpit and in the press for thinking about suffrage. They were spit upon and pelted with rotten eggs for speaking out about it, and they were jailed for demanding it. The struggle for women's suffrage was a long, bitter fight. It was waged on street corners and atop soapboxes, in city halls, Grange halls, and the halls of Congress. It was fought in parlors and kitchens and bedrooms, under State House domes, at the bench of the U.S. Supreme Court, and finally in the Capitol building in Nashville and the elegant lobby of the nearby Hotel Hermitage. Winning the vote required 72 years of ceaseless agitation by 3 generations of dedicated, fearless suffragists who sought to overturn centuries of law and millennia of tradition concerning gender roles. The women who launched the movement were dead by the time it was completed. The women who secured its final success weren't born when it began. It took more than 900 local, state, and national campaigns involving tens of thousands of grassroots volunteers, financed by millions of dollars of mostly small and a few large donations by women across the country. The movement developed great women orators, talented executives, and tenacious lobbyists. It nurtured feminist philosophers and astute politicians who, though they had no legal standing or governmental representation, learned to manipulate the levers of political power and pull the strings of public opinion. Women who had never had public lives were emboldened to speak out, to march in the streets, even to raise picket signs in public protest for the first time. Some were more strongly radicalized in their quest for civic equality and became willing to commit acts of civil disobedience and go to jail in pursuit of the franchise. Through the decades, the cause changed the way women saw themselves and transformed society's view of women. The controversy over ratification of the 19th Amendment and, more broadly, the long battle over women's suffrage wasn't simply a political argument. It was also a social, cultural, and moral debate, a precursor to what we now call culture wars, raising issues that were complex and divisive. Allowing women to vote had the potential to not only upend the electoral process and the political status quo, but also alter societal and personal relations and, according to suffrage's opponents, disturb the home and endanger the family. The political became the personal, and for
Sample complete. Ready to continue?